Welcome to Daggerheart Characters. Today we'll be doing a class, though, not a character. And, this isn't like one that I'm so excited to share from my heart. However, I did have fun creating this witch class, and I think there are some fun mechanics, and I think I made the best out of the Sage and Splendor domain being combined, because it's a little bit weird. But I did want to go with, like, a witchy healer. My first thought was Sage and Splendor. Like, what kind of healer is that? And then kind of, a lot of people think of witches like typically like what you're supposed to be seeing in the background right now on the screen. We are spiritual healers. Essentially is what it is. We are in touch with nature. That is kind of the idea of Wiccan, right? So think of this as less of, well, I should say, one of these subclasses lets you indulge in the fantasy movie type of witch, and the other one is a little bit more real world in terms of like a Wiccan type of witch. I'm sure there's other types of witch out there beyond Wiccan, but that's the one that I think most of us are more familiar with. So anyways, starting evasion is going to be 9, starting hit points are going to be 7 for this character. That is balanced. That is some sort of either the druid or it's probably a druid. Starting evasion and hit points. For the class items, hey, I spent some time and energy thinking of this, so I ended up, I know it could have just been a cauldron, but this is what I ended up with. We have a set of test tubes, just thinking this is where you can, don't think test tubes too limited, but just small little jars of sorts, however you exactly want to flavor them, but where you could keep vials of blood if you need blood for any of your witchcraft, where you could put stuff that you find out in nature into these little vials and plug them up, that type of thing. And the other one is a small pouch which holds a candle, incense, a crystal, and a miniature bowl. And each of those represent one of the 4 elements: earth, wind, earth, air, fire, and water. For like a miniature bowl, it can hold water. So that's the idea of those 4 items that a witch might carry around with them to regularly have available for their witchcraft. And that's going to bring us on to the hope feature. One of the bigger, probably the biggest hope feature that exists, but I think it's fun. So spend 3 hope to use the elements of to your advantage, and you pick one effect. First, you can go with Earth. The terrain becomes difficult for your adversaries. Until the end of the scene, adversaries treat close range as if it were far or very far range for their movement. Now, that should be enough to explain it. However, just to make sure GMs are on the same page here generally with me, the suggested difficulty of agility rolls for adversarial movement, which is now impacted by this feature, is 13. So if you're not aware within the game, any movement from far or very far range to get into close range, or to get into, at least close range or closer, takes a agility roll. This allows you to force now close range to have to take an agility roll. The idea became being in some environments, maybe the earth starts to become muddy, and maybe in a muddy environment, maybe you would increase this difficulty. Maybe it's like, okay, now it's muddy, and these are, I don't know, creatures that would struggle in the mud, skeletons or something like that would really have, some troubles in the mud, or maybe skeletons would be too light for the mud. Maybe something who are very heavy, you think, would have more trouble in the mud. That's just something for the GM to determine there, but ultimately the idea is that you're obviously using the earth against the element of earth against your enemies to make it harder for them. But your allies are fine in the mud, in that instance. Air. You send a gust of wind that disrupts an adversary. When an adversary goes to make an action roll, you can make an instinct roll. That is your spellcasting ability. As instinct reaction roll of 13. On a success, you force them to roll at disadvantage. Water. The source of life and vitality. Allies within far range can clear a stress slot or gain a hope. And fire. Turn up the heat and roll a d6. If the die lands on a 3 or higher, you can make a spellcast roll against all adversaries within very close range. On a success, targets can choose to mark a hit point slot or an armor slot, and they must move to close range. So this is just kind of creating a buffer and damaging those around in case you start to get surrounded as a witch. That's probably not the best thing. You're usually not going to be, suited for too much hand-to-hand combat here. And that's going to bring us on to the class feature here, Witch's Brew. I think you know where this is kind of headed. At the beginning of your session, you receive an amount of tokens equal to the level of witch subclass features that you've unlocked. These are called potion tokens. if you've unlocked, you automatically have unlocked the foundation. So you get 2 potion tokens automatically. If you decide to get specialized into witchcraft, you get 4 potion tokens. And if you decide to become a master witch, you get 6 potion tokens. Each time you spend a potion token, the next potion token has a new effect. Each one may be used on yourself or an ally. So you could play this differently, but it is written there like this. You gotta use token 1 before you can use token 2, and so on is the idea. So throughout the day, it improves and gets better for you. The first effect is going to add 1d4 to a trait roll. Second effect, add 1d4 to a spellcast roll. Those are your tier 1 effects. Tier 2 effects, and 1. Token number 3, gain advantage on an attack roll, clear a stress, as token number 4. And then for your final, once you become a master, you can clear a hit point with token number 5. And token number 6, you can use on a tag team roll involving yourself and somebody else, or 2 others. It does not specify. Each player may use a d20 for their hope die instead of the normal d12. So the idea is that this increasingly gets better as it goes. I think and hope that that's correct. Now on to the witch subclasses, where we really get into things here. So choose either the good witch or the wicked witch. Where did that flavor come from? Spellcast trait, instinct. I actually originally, when I created this name, Elemental Express, I was going to take a bunch of flavor from something you're probably not aware of, but Starlight Express. I was going to try and do a bunch of funny Starlight Express names for this, but I ended up going away from that. And then in terms of Good Witch, Wicked Witch, I decided not to go specifically with names for these features that were based on The Wizard of Oz, because I thought that would be too obvious and way too gimmicky then. Starlight Express, at least most people wouldn't have a clue that that's happening. If you choose to play the Good Witch, you're choosing to play the option that you want to deal in hope. And the reason for this build is really based around, when I looked at the class, the domain cards between Sage and Splendor, there is a larger than normal expectation or ask of usage of hope. Like, you're going to have no trouble spending hope. The thing is they're going to be hope to spend when you need it the most. So mechanically, the Good Witch is built with that in mind. The fact that, hey, we're going to want to make hope a pool that we can somehow access a little bit easier or is more readily available to this creature, to this player. So, foundation features. See Good. When an ally within close range clears 1 or more stress on another ally, you can roll a d6. On a 5 or higher, you gain a hope. The idea would be not that if your ally clears 1 or more stress on you, that you can use this. Whatever, if your DM decides to allow that, go right ahead. And then Be Good. Once per rest, roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, clear 1 stress of an ally, and another within close range can gain a hope. That'll bring us on to the specialization features. Hope in Abundance. You permanently gain an extra hope slot, +1 to your hope slots. At the end of a long rest, you gain a hope if you have an available hope slot to gain. And then the other specialization feature here is Hope is Infectious. Once per rest, you can mark a stress, and you can give an ally within far range 1 hope. The idea here would just be that you see an ally only has 2 hope and they want to invoke their hope feature, for instance, so you are able to mark a stress and then they're able to do what they need to do, even though they were originally short on hope. That's my idea of how that would be used. And that's going to bring us on to the mastery feature. I believe it's just 1 feature here, yep, and it is called Remote Travel, so that should give you a good idea. Once per rest, make a spellcast roll of 15. On a success, you drop into a vision where you can clearly see and hear any place that you've ever been, as if you were standing there in this moment. You can move freely in this vision, and you are not constrained by the physics or impediments of a physical body. This spell cannot be detected by mundane or magical means. You can remain in this vision for as long as you theoretically wish to, though your physical body and your mind still need their normal levels of nourishment and sleep to operate functionally. Just trying to prevent some abuse of this. I could see somebody trying to do this for a really long time. The idea is not that, and hopefully the GM would start to encourage you in other ways, maybe even if you were to start to do that. The idea is you can remotely go somewhere, be there for an hour, whatever the case. Sure, that's fine. but just remote movement, hopefully fairly temporarily. You may not move at your current physical location while you're in this vision. All of your senses at your physical location are heavily dulled. There's a better word for that, I know. But there is a level of awareness that exists. So if somebody's trying to get your attention, let you know, hey, we gotta go, they're shaking your body, you're gonna feel that shaking sensation. Somebody's shouting into your ear, you're gonna hear that. But if there's general conversation going on around you, you're probably not gonna hear it unless something maybe, is said that just kind of catches your attention while you're not doing too much at your remote location, that kind of thing. While you are in this vision, you can use your subclass features as well as the Elemental Express feature as if you were physically at the remote location. So this is something that's kind of cool. If you were to be in jail and you know that your team, your allies are going to be going somewhere and probably fighting, you could remotely give them a little bit of help. You could remotely come in and make the earth tougher for their opponents to be moving around in or something like that, and just give them a little bit of help from a ways away. I think that that's really fun if need be. It's obviously not going to always happen or anything like that, but there is that potential. Or even some other ally other than your player characters that they're going to need some help with some adventure, but it doesn't make sense for you to be close by, but you can at least maybe if there's like rolls going on behind the scenes, maybe they just get like advantage on those rolls because you do this. Something like that could be fun to kind of flavor this as. And then also you can cast a first, second, third, or fourth level spell as if you were physically at the remote location. But if you do so after resolving the spell's effects, you are shunted out of the vision and you return to your physical form as normal. That's why I say you just really cast one, but any one of your first, second, or third level, fourth level spells. You cannot cast spells of 5th level or higher while using this feature. And that is going to bring us on to the Wicked Witch. Play the Wicked Witch if you want to use fear to your advantage. So we got one dealing in hope and the other one dealing in fear. First trait here for the foundation feature is a GM's tithing. They're going to be paying up for you being at the table. That's it. At the end of long rests, roll a d6. If you roll a 1 or a 2, nothing happens. If you roll a 3, 4, or 5, the GM loses 1 fear. If you roll a 6, the GM loses 2 fear. The other foundation feature here is Dark Visage. It's not easily explained, but you're harder to locate in dark places. When you are in an area of darkness or a shadow cast by another creature or object, you are hidden. Once an adversary deals damage to you, you are no longer considered to be hidden to that adversary. There you go. That's bringing us on to the specialization features. First up, I found my broom. How could we not acknowledge the broom? This is a witch. So, you gain the ability to fly. At the beginning of your session, take a number of tokens equal to your spellcast trait. These are your flight actions. Each time you make an action roll, during flight, you expend one of your flight actions. After you use your final flight action, you descend to the ground directly below you. And the other specialization feature is I cast a spell on you. Just basically, this is you charm them and you get some benefit of significant value, but not highly significant value for a specialization feature. It's just kind of a bunch of like tier 1 stuff here, all rolled into 2 different abilities, is kind of what we're getting, and the flight is a little bit improved, generally speaking, because it automatically works. Because, you're not casting a spell or anything, it's just a broom. Now, I cast a spell on you. Who needs to be charming when you can bend others to your will through magic, right? When you make a presence roll, you can add your spellcast trait to the total. Additionally, once per long rest, you can mark a stress to charm a creature and choose one of the following outcomes. First outcome, gain an advantage on a roll to deceive or trick a target into believing you, so just advantage on deceptive moves. The target focuses on you and only you. They temporarily lose all of their senses to the outside world and will obey simple commands that bring no harm to themselves or a friend. Any amount of pain takes them out of your spell, as would any command that drastically goes against any sort of moral code that the character may have. Technically, as written, this could get abused in some other ways in terms of length of time and everything. As they did in writing the book, I'm giving a little bit of faith to the players to work along with the GM to understand what the main intent here is. You can get a small favor is what we're talking about. And also, not only you don't have to ask for a favor, you can also just distract them and let your party basically just walk right on past, just like a different feature for a bard. I'm just kind of giving you some bard abilities here. Once again, first, second tier type of stuff. They must tell you the truth, really first tier, to the best of their knowledge. If you ask them more than one question, they make a knowledge reaction roll of 12 for each question asked. On a success, they no longer need to be truthful, and they're aware that they've been charmed. So a little bit of risk here if you kind of want to ask more than one question, but you could get more out of it. And I think a really fun scenario is waiting here for your GM to play along with, to either for you and the GM to play along with in terms of your character not realizing that this person is lying to you, your spell has ended, but they are deceiving you. And of course, they should give you some sort of roll to recognize that you're being deceived. Or maybe they're just doing it kind of behind the scenes and they're allowing you to dig your own grave. Either way, could be fun, depending on how your GM runs the games and what the expectations are in terms of what your GM can and cannot do to you. And then the final little effect that you can do here is roll a d4 and the target can clear a number of stress and or hit points equal to the result of the roll. If they choose to clear one less stress or hit point, they can instead take 1 hope. The idea being you could take 1 hope here, okay? But not 2 or 3 or 4. Or increase your hope by 1, not 2 or 3 or 4. And then the mastery features here for the Wicked Witch. Harnessing Fear. Here's where we really onboard the fear thing. When you make a successful attack, you can mark a stress to add the result of your fear die to your damage roll. This exists in the game already. And then Mastering Fear. Once per session, you can use the GM's fear against them. So this could be really powerful against a big bad and potentially some big bads. Maybe this just totally disarms them. I didn't quite want that to happen. Of course, your GM holds on to their fear in this, but you get to use it against them. So I do have like a 75% chance of this working, but a 25% chance that it doesn't work. So roll a d4. If it lands on a 1, your attempt to use this feature fails. There we go. Straight up. All right, we're done with it. We'll try it next session. On a success, however, you can force any number of adversaries within far range to mark a total number of stress, split up as you wish amongst your adversaries, of course, equal to the number of fear plus 1 that your GM currently has. So if your GM has 9 fear, you can split up 10, you can cause a number of creatures or 1 to mark up to a total of combined 10 stress. I think that's clear within the writing. If not, let me know, give me an idea of how to write it better. If the target has no more stress slots to mark, they make a flat reaction roll of 15, meets it, beats it. Upon a success, they do not need to mark any hit points. Once again, wanted to prevent this from becoming overpowered, so we do have ways for this to really, really, really work to your advantage. Maybe just wipe out, 5, 6 weak enemies at a whim, or you could even do quite a bit of damage to the big bad potentially. But there are ways that that's not going to come to fruition, at least. So that's the whole idea here. Like, if you take away their stress, at least there's still a chance that they're going to not start to take physical damage as well. So I think that ends up being balanced, I hope. But as with these things, this has not been extensively playtested. This hasn't been playtested. I do take my time to go look through features as inspiration, so that way I'm staying within something that's already been created, with the bounds of something that's already been created with the game, and then maybe from there I'll make slight improvements or disimprovements depending on, is the onboarding of that feature going to be matching when they're getting it here, and all that good stuff. I do my best to make these balanced, but there's never a guarantee, especially with features like that, where I'm just, this is a fully customized feature. There's nothing like this in the game that I'm aware of currently, at least. So, there you go. Now, if you want something like this, you have it at your fingertips if you wish. So you can find this. You should be able to find this, a link in the description to this this build that you could then print off and utilize on your own if you wish. And thank you very much. If you like this stuff, you like my videos, you liked this video, please let YouTube know. And then YouTube can let others start to let them know that maybe they'll like this. And comment, like, subscribe. That's how you let YouTube know. Thank you. Bye-bye.